Welcome to CS195 Web Development Week 3 Intro to CSS. Today's lesson, CSS Basics. So if you remember from our last lesson, we learned how to add an image to the page. We also learned about attributes. And now these attributes are going to be real important as we go on to the next couple of lessons. But again, here's our question. Did we need to close the tag? Why and why not? So go ahead and pause, think about that, answer that in your head. Alright, do we need to close the tag? No, the image tag does not close because there's nothing that goes inside of it, right? The H1 tag, the heading tag, the text that goes inside of it is the heading, but the image is just an image. It's like the break. The break just breaks right there. You don't need anything. So that's the why or why not. Alright, so for this, we are starting CSS. It stands for Cascading Style Sheets, but what you really need to know is it adds style to the page. Everything that we've created so far, it just goes straight down the page. Nothing fancy, no colors, no change really. It just goes pretty much straight down the page. So our goal or objective is to understand the basics of CSS and then how do we add it to a page, because it is a different programming language per se, scripting language, and that's important to understand because it's going to go into the code, so we need to know where it goes and we need to know how we actually type it up. So at the end of the lesson, we'll actually be able to use CSS in a Khan challenge. Our success criteria will be students will demonstrate adding the style tag into the correct location, and we'll go over where that location is, and along with adding a color rule and a background rule. And we'll go over and understand what all that means in a little bit. But you're going to need to know, how do I add the style tag, and then how do I use it to change the color and the background color, which is what we're going to kind of do for the next, because we're really going to teach you on how do I select, how do I change this one, how do I change this one, how do I change this one, how do I change both of these. We're going to spend this first few lessons learning how do I select these items so that I can change them. Now, in order to know that we change them, we are going to learn a couple things to change, font color and background color. So we're going to learn to change a couple things. So with that, we're going to go ahead and head over to the Khan video. We'll see how it's done and they'll try it out together.
We've now learned how to make a pretty complete web page with all sorts of marked up text and images, but it's lacking something: style. My web page here looks the same as the web pages you've been making. Black text, white background, same font, everything laid out from top to bottom. But you've been on the web and you've seen that web pages can look very different from each other. Look around on Khan Academy at all different colors and fonts and sizes. In fact, let's do this now. Pause this talk through and look at a few different websites. What's different about each of them? What do you like or dislike about their style? I'll just wait right here.
You can pause the video.
It's important to see how different web pages can be, because pretty soon you'll figure out how to make your web pages look different, and you want to do that in a way that makes you happy because it represents you, but that also makes other users happy too. Well, to style our web pages, we need to learn a whole new language, CSS. That stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and it's a way of defining styles that will apply to different parts of our web page. We embed CSS inside of HTML, but it isn't actually HTML, so we have to learn a whole new language and try not to confuse HTML with CSS. We'll see how we can use CSS to style all sorts of aspects of our web page, like the fonts, sizes, and layouts. But we'll start with something that's pretty fun: color. How about we change some headings on our web page to a nice grassy green? To start, we need to add a style tag to the head of our page. When the browser...
Alright, so very importantly, style tag goes in the head, right? Remember how I said stuff that shows up on the web page goes in here. That's what we see over here. Information about the web page goes in here. Now again, as a reminder, this right here is what would show up right here. See, CS Basics, CS Basics. And again, if this wasn't a web page inside of a web page, all this would say was CSS Basics. But now you'll see styles. It's information. It's how this looks. It's information about the web page. How this looks goes in here. And then this is the style tag. It always goes in the head. You can put it at the top, the bottom of the head. Doesn't really matter. It just needs to go inside of the head And that tells the browser, and she's going to kind of go over this, it tells the browser that, hey, we're going to be writing a new language inside of this. So you need the style tag to say, tell the browser, everything inside of here is going to be a new language.
If the browser sees that, it will think, okay, everything inside here is CSS. I'll use my CSS parser to understand it instead of my HTML parser. Inside here, we'll add a CSS Style Rule. A style rule has a selector, which tells the browser what part of a web page to style, and declarations, which tell the browser how to style that part. If we want to style all the H2s on our page, we'll type the selector H2. And then we'll do curly braces. Make sure they're curly.
Okay, so this is important. This is a vocab word. This is the selector. It is selecting all of the H2s. Really, again, you need to understand that you are selecting and then modifying. Everything inside of the squiggly brackets is modifying. And think about what we've done so far. It has an opening and a closing, just like an opening and a closing. So it's a different programming script, but as you can see, it still has a lot of the same concepts. You have to open and close it. The only thing different now is before we open and close, we're saying, hey, we are selecting, and this is important, all of the H2s, every single H2. The next couple of lessons we'll learn how to select one or a couple, some of them, but for now we're learning how to select tags. So if you type this tag, you're selecting all of them. And what would you just think about this for a second? If you wanted to select all the paragraphs, what would you type here? Think about that. Say it out loud. What would you type there to do paragraphs? Just the P tag, right? You just type the name of it. And this is something I see a lot of students do. Don't do that. Again, this is not HTML anymore. You just need to put the tag. So kind of see how some of the concepts are the same as most programming languages need to know how to start and end different pieces of their code.
Curly, not square around. Those won't work. Inside, we'll put our declarations, which have properties and values. So to change the text color, we use the color property. Then we put a colon, and now we need to come up with a value. We need to tell the browser what color we're interested in. Well, we could just write green.
I'm going to pause here. She'll go over a lot of different stuff and colors you can do, and we'll go over it as well, but it's important to understand. This is the selector. This is a declaration. This is a property. What are you going to change? And this is the value. What are you going to change it to? And I think I have a nice little picture for you back on Canvas. But again, this is important. These are vocab words. You need to understand this, because once you understand these, then you need them all. So the selector, and then this whole thing is a declaration. This is a property, and then this is the value that you're changing it to. And you can have more than these. We could go in here, and she's gonna show us some of these other ones in a little bit. But again, my property is background, my value is blue, and you can see that I made all of the H2s blue. And again, all of them, right? That is the concept with it. Any on the H2, not the H1s, not the H3s, only my H2s changed to this.
And it would understand it because green's a common color. But that's not the green I wanted. I want a grassy green. If I write grassy green, now the browser gets confused and makes the headings black again because it's never heard of grassy green. If we want to be able to specify any color at all, then we need to use something called the RGB spectrum, which maybe you've heard about in art class. You don't need to be an expert in it though, because we have an RGB color picker for you here. To use it, just replace this with RGB parentheses, and a color picker will pop up.
Alright, so this is important. This is again the syntax. We need to know how the syntax is. It's RGB and then parentheses. And then you're going to put the numbers in here. Most of you probably have used this before some way or another with other JavaScript that you've been working with, but RGB parentheses. So you can't just type the numbers. You can't just type RGB the numbers. It's RGB parentheses, and then she's saying is you can use this to pick it. And then there you go. Those are the numbers for that specific color. But again, remember, it's RGB, so if I try to make this a little bit more, this is red, this is green, and this is blue. So the top numbers, remember this is, based on binary, 8 bits. This is from 0 to 255. All of these are 0 to 255. So as you see, this is almost all red, a little bit of green, and a little bit more of blue. And that's how we get this shade of red. So this allows you to get very specific. Now I'm going to show you real quick, because when you use Khan Academy, this is great. They have the color picker. You can pick your colors, but you might not always have that. So I always go over here, HTML color picker, and then you can do the same thing. Here's your RGB. And if you actually go to HTML color picker and you pick your colors, notice that this is the code that HTML needs, RGB parentheses, and you just click on the shade. So I want this green, I want that green, and then there is the green that you need. So we have our own color picker. You have to copy and paste, and you can use this in any of the browsers. Also, you can literally just use this as well, this hexadecimal. If everyone remembers what hexadecimal is, you could also just copy and paste this, but it does need that hashtag. So again, this is the proper way to do this for HTML. That's why I went to the HTML color picker, so therefore it's giving me the HTML code I need to do the color.
And you can move your mouse inside of it and pick a color, and you can see the color update in real time. And when you're happy, click. Now, do you notice how there were 3 numbers that it changed in our RGB parentheses? That's the red, green, and blue components that make up that color. Okay, the neat thing about this CSS selector, H2, that we use is that it selects all of the H2s on the page. So we can change multiple headlines because we want all of those H2s to be green. And it's consistent for all those H2s it finds on the page. If you keep going with CSS, you can learn about many other ways of selecting parts of a page, like if you only wanted one of those H2s, but you can go pretty far with these tag-based selectors. Let's add another CSS style rule, this time to make the background a sky blue. How would we color the background on a page? Well, which tag encompasses the whole page?
All right, so go ahead and pause and think about that. Say it, what tag does all the tags go in that show up on the page? All right, I said that specifically because that's how I explain what that tag is for. Hopefully you said the body, right? The body is the one that all the tags go inside of.
It's not the H1s, it's not the Ps, not the image. It's the body tag. Remember, everything visible is always inside that body tag. So if we want to style the entire page, we need to use a selector to select that tag. So we'll write body. Now, instead of color, we'll write background color, colon, and then RGB, parentheses. We get our color picker, and I'll pop it up and pick a blue that makes me think of frolicking bunnies and cumulus clouds.
All right, so that's about the end of this video we really need. You'll notice that she typed in background color, I typed in background. They both work. So either way you want to, background color, if it helps you remember. Background color is background color, type in background color. You could also just do background. Now we already went over the color picker, so when we go through this, when we do our testing, I'm not really testing you on being able to change to a certain color. But if you do want to have a specific, as we go through this and you're building your very specific web page that we're going through this whole entire project in class, that you might want to use some of these other colors, but you're not going to get tested on all these different colors. So with this, let's go ahead and full screen this, and we will make it so you can actually read it. And I've already put the style tag inside the head tag, right? So the style tag, notice again, it's indented inside the head tag to let us know it's in there. And then we do need to indent 3 times to show we're inside of this. So the H1 says go ahead and change its font color, and then we want H2s to not change the font color, but the background too. So how do you select an H1? All right, pause it, think about it. Just type H1. That is the selector. Then we squiggly bracket, enter, and it automatically, when you click enter, it automatically closes the squiggly bracket for you and automatically indents, so we know we're doing this right. Now we want to change the color, so we just type in, again, this is this, the property is color, colon, and here's a couple things to notice. Notice how this is a different color, right? It's not black. It's like a purplish. So those are a couple things that you want to look for when you're doing this. So like if I type in color, it didn't turn purple, and it didn't end with my semicolon. But if I type it incorrectly, it changed the color. So these are some hints that, hey, you might be doing something wrong. So let's just go make this red. Nothing fancy. That is the value. Again, selector. This is your property and then your value. So let's go ahead and then realize that when we do the next one, I see this a lot. We're going to select the H2. You don't put it inside here. You have to go under. It's a new rule. This whole thing is a rule, so you need to go under here and create a new rule. So H2, squiggly bracket, enter. I say you can just type in background. Notice how it turned purple. I do my colon. It automatically puts a semicolon. And let's just change this to blue. And again, just the background changes. And I've already showed you on hers that you don't need to make a new H1 rule. That's right. They have the declarations. You can put as many declarations as you want. And if you've seen some CSS for some stuff, there's a lot of declarations. And probably by the time of this class, you're going to be putting a lot of declarations into one rule, right? So again, rule, selector, declaration, property, and then the value you're changing it to. That's what you need to do for every single one of them. This needs to close so it knows what to do. Like if I do this, it's going to break it, right? It's like, wait a second. Now this is my rule, and I got an H2 inside of it. So, make sure that you do your syntax properly. You can always come back and watch these videos to make sure you're doing it, or watch other videos, Google it. I mean, that's the beauty of this. CSS, change font color. If I could type today. And then, and again, we'll go over some Googling later, but when you're looking for changing CSS, you need to say CSS. Don't say HTML font color. You'll probably end up with the right results because Google's pretty smart, but your first result will probably be HTML font color, and it works differently, and that's not what we're getting tested on. So come down here, and then boom. It shows you this is the declaration. That's what you need to understand is when you're searching for how do I do font color, you're looking for the declaration. You should know what you need to select. Like if you copy all this and you want to change all the paragraphs, this is not going to change the paragraphs. You have to change that to a P tag, right? So, and that's the beauty of trying this yourself with this system. With that, you have your challenge. Oh yeah, here's that beautiful picture I promised you. It's also in Canvas. And then your journal entry. Have a great day. We'll see you next lesson.